Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise on behalf of the citizens of Calgary Centre and speak about this new bill. The actual title of the bill is an act respecting certain measures relating to the security of Canada's borders and the integrity of the Canadian immigration system and respecting other related securities measures. But I would say we should call it C-12. The short Liberal title. We broke the immigration system. We messed up public safety, border security, and law enforcement. But don't worry, we're back to fix it because we know what we're doing. In other words, I break it, then fix it. It's my version of job security. Or otherwise, if I didn't break it first, how would anyone know how good it is, how good I am at fixing it? Or, as we say, it's the classic Liberal playbook, break the system, then hold a press conference to announce they're fixing it. They fight the fire, they light the fire, then show up with a watering can and call it leadership. So the issues that we have to address in this bill, of course, are based on several parts of the bill. C-12 has numerous parts to it, but a couple objectives: security of Canada's borders, of course, and the integrity of the Canadian immigration system. And for the sake of the public that may be following, I'll break it down further into what's known as this omnibus bill. It's composed of 11 parts that amend various statutes. So the statutes include the Customs Act, the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, the Cannabis Act, the Oceans Act, the Department of Citizenship and Immigration Act, the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, the Proceeds of Crime, Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing Act and its regulations, the Retail Payment Activities Act, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions Act, and the Sex Offenders Act. So there's a lot for me to unpack in there. I'm sure you'll know, Madam Speaker, that there's a choice for me to spend 10 minutes talking about a plethora of sources about what we can do with this bill going forward here. But this started with Bill C-2, much of which was pressed on this government by the Trump administration down in the United States, forcing us to look at some of the security measures that weren't happening in Canada at that point in time, and we were pushed to the wall to actually accomplish some things. That came back, of course, to the House, and the House has, the opposition, my colleagues here, have revisited that, and the Liberal government has come back and taken a bunch of quite offensive parts out of that initial bill that really impeded upon civil liberties, and come back here with the bill C-12 that actually will address some of the issues that have been long simmering in Canadian society and that have caused significant problems here. Bill C-2 was an error, as I say again, a Liberal misstep, and now we need to clarify that. But you know, if the Liberal government really needs help drafting this kind of legislation that actually works, my Conservative colleagues and I are willing to write the legislation for them and make sure we get the security that we need in this country, both in the immigration system, which is we've seen explode in the last number of years, as well as the border security realm. Now, a number of things are going on here. So let's take a look for me to pick from here. To begin with, let's note that this is a fix for the Liberal government's first attempt at this. But fixes we must go through in this House at times, and we're willing to do that here with this legislation, and happy to do it. But particularly with respect to the illicit drug trade, organized crime, money laundering, and human trafficking, I'd like to speak to here. For 10 years, the Liberal government has been duly informed of these attacks on Canada's expectations of maintaining peace, order, and good government in this country. There's been problems that have been evident for a long time. Money laundering was addressed in budgets delivered by this government and never took any action upon it. It was always kicked down the road as far as dealing with organized crime and the illicit activities that go with it. So all talk and no action. Let me say that ignoring the avails of organized criminals is, by default, accepting the consequences of organized crime. Opioids, like fentanyl, are ruining the lives of Canadians. 50,000 Canadians have perished over the last 8 years from the use of fentanyl and opioid-related drugs. This has visited misery upon their families and upon our streets and upon our society in general. Now, let me share a personal story. Last January, across the street from my office, I went to pick up my dry cleaning, and there was a young man dying on the sidewalk. And first person on the scene, so you get on your knees and you do everything you can to get that man's heart starting again, his heart beating. And one thing runs through your mind, and that's your kids. And I have 4 boys, and that's what ran through my mind at that point in time, that this could be one of my sons here, because this is a scourge. I don't know this man's backstory, but for 20 minutes, I helped revive this man, and I begged other people to help me. That experience doesn't leave you. This is something that we need to think about as far as how it impacts all of society. Imaginez perdre votre sœur, votre frère, ou même un de vos parents. Perdre un être cher avec qui vous ne partagerez plus jamais un repas, un rire, un souvenir. Un être cher dont vous ne verrez plus les rêves se réaliser ni les années passées. C'est ce qui vivent les milliers de familles canadiennes frappées chaque jour par le fléau du fentanyl. Les choses pourraient être différentes, mais ce gouvernement échoue à remplir sa mission première, protéger sa population. 10 cities are growing in every major city in Canada, and I represent a riding downtown. And these Canadians that live in 10 cities, they're not safe. They're not secure. This is not a future that we see for our kids. This is not a future for any Canadians. This scourge of addiction and homelessness should never have been ignored. This is about priorities. And these priorities for Canadians are very clear. Again, there seems to be comfort in ignoring the obvious. And obviously, criminals are profiting from this. How many car thieves are considered statistically normal before society pushes back? Higher insurance costs, higher policing costs, and escalating violence. These are not victimless crimes. Now, Madam Speaker, one of my proud moments as the Member of Parliament for Calgary Centre was my opposition to a second so-called safe consumption site in downtown Calgary. Now, this is at a place called the Drop-In Centre where homeless people get to go in Calgary. And it's right next to Chinatown. It's a very important part of downtown Calgary. And a new development called East Village. Now, East Village is an area that's built to bring families back downtown. So we have lots of nice towers with 3-bedroom condos in them. Well, during that time, you actually had families leaving because they did not want to raise families on streets that were trafficked by the pushers, drug pushers, and criminals that are looking to profit from people's addiction. And imagine your kids in that type of area. But think about the homeless people themselves that have to go through a gauntlet of death in order to get to a homeless shelter. This was never a solution. It was brought forward as a potential solution by the provincial UCP, United Conservative Government. The NDP provincially were all on side. The federal Liberals were all on side. I'll correct my colleague on the other side. The federal Liberals were on side. And I was the lone opposition for some time. Certain members of City Council came and joined me in that fight, and in the end there was no safe consumption site open at the Drop-In Centre, which serves some of Calgary's most needed people that need our help the most. So this solution was never a solution. We need to kind of get back to what the real solutions are, and the real solutions are, of course, to end this at its source. And that source is the criminals that are moving this scourge upon our population. Those are the drug pushers. Those are the organized crime. Those are the people that are making money at the expense of society. So, Madam Speaker, I propose that we move this bill eventually to committee and actually make those changes that make the laws more strict upon those people that are actually causing this death and destruction on our societies, and make sure that we make them pay. Crime should not be a risk-free profit venture. So we need to end this as quickly as possible and make sure that they are accountable for their actions. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. The Prime Minister made a commitment to Canadians to deal with the issues of strengthening Canada's borders and to deal with the issue of immigration in the whole area of stabilization, in particular dealing with things like asylum seekers. Bill C-12 does just that. It's a fulfillment in good part of a commitment that was made. We do look for cooperation because it is a minority government from opposition members in recognizing that this legislation is a significant move forward. I would suggest to you this, combined with the commitment of 1,000 new border control officers, 1,000 new RCMP, again provides more security for Canadians by securing our borders and making our streets a safer place. My question to the member is, would he not agree that in order to get the legislation through, we do need a high sense of cooperation? And is there any specific amendments the member would like to see with respect to this particular Bill C-12?
Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Well, I thank my colleague for the important question there. And yes, as the member across the way will understand fully that we are cooperating on this very clearly and getting this towards committee. Without the offensive parts of C2 in there, we're moving this forward. But there's a number of issues in here we think are only half measures that we need to make sure fully address the problems that are being faced by Canadians here, not just by those visited upon us by the new U.S. administration, which is pushing this government to act. We understand that. We are willing to actually get this to committee. Can we make changes on the drug pushing laws? Can we make changes on the half measures as opposed to the immigration asylum system that are a part of this bill? We'd love to see this roundly discussed and those amendments clearly made at committee. So thank you very much. We will be working towards that end.
Honourable député de Shefford.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Je remercie mon collègue pour son discours et la lutte à la criminalité. Le Bloc s'en préoccupe également. On avait quelques idées sur la table. Hein. On a parlé de la question de retirer l'exception religieuse pour les discours haineux dans le Code criminel. On avait parlé aussi d'un projet de loi pour que les crimes faits en contexte entre partenaires intimes ne voient pas les procès avortés à cause de l'arrêt Jordan. Et l'an passé, mon collègue, parce qu'il a parlé des gangs de rue, mon collègue de Rivière-du-Nord a déposé un projet de loi facilitant la saisie des biens appartenant à des individus reconnus coupables d'une infraction en lien avec des organisations criminelles. Madame la Présidente, a-t-il regardé un peu ces projets de loi et en quelle mesure sera-t-il prêt à collaborer avec le Bloc québécois sur ces enjeux importants de criminalité? Madame la Présidente.
Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Oui, merci pour ma collègue pour sa question. C'est une bonne question ici. C'est notre travail ici de collaborer avec tous les autres partis pour faire mieux les projets de loi qui arrivent chez nous. Mais c'est notre travail. Mais c'est un autre projet de loi qu'elle se propose. Mais c'est quelque chose c'est important de voir et considérer comme ça. Mais je remercie encore.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock.
Madam Speaker, the Liberals want to talk all the time about the 1,000 RCMP officers that they're going to be hiring. Yet I did an order paper question to discover how many RCMP officers are we capable of training in 1 year. And currently, I think we're training 34 per year. They could ramp up to 58 per year. Given that would take 20 years to get the 1,000 RCMP officers that they claim that they're hiring up and operational. So I'm just wondering if my honourable colleague has any comments about these bait-and-switch announcements that the Liberal Party puts up all the time.
Member for Calgary Centre.
Well, that's a very good question. I thank my colleague for arriving with that data, actually, that is important because making an announcement is something, we talk about that, and I said that in my speech, all talk and no action. And it's the same with the Canadian Armed Forces, about improving the lot of the Canadian Armed Forces and getting back to a base. They talk about increasing the numbers, and yet the recruitment doesn't show any increase in those numbers whatsoever. The same with the police. You talk about 1,000 more police and customs borders officials, and yet that hiring practice doesn't seem to be happening at all. It seems to be, the government seems to want to stack a whole bunch of bureaucrats in Ottawa at the thought level without any of the bureaucrats, actually any of the people that have to deliver the services to Canadians at the ground level. And that's a mistake of this government. We need more action and less talk. Thank you.
Resuming debate, the Honourable